I received an email today with a request to address aloneness during the holidays, which is something that a lot of people experience, but you wouldn't know it from watching ads and the perpetuation of this kind of archetypal perfect Thanksgiving or perfect Christmas or whatever. And it's well noted that a lot of people feel more depression during the holidays, and this can come from whether you had great holidays as a kid or you had horrible holidays as a kid. If you had bad ones, if your family was dysfunctional, then the holidays can remind you of that when everyone gets together and all the dysfunctional is in full form. Or if you had good ones, but you are now alone and you don't have that kind of warm, fuzzy feeling that you had as a kid, then that can be a feeling of loss. But I think there are two underlying concepts that contribute largely to the feeling of depression that comes up for a lot of people if they're not living the socialized dream and they are experiencing aloneness in one form or another. And those two factors are either comparison or basically feeling like you're not part of a tribe. And this comparison factor comes from this instinctual feeling that people have that they have to fit in to be safe, because we're not, in the descendants of some kind of real individualistic mammal. We have evolved from a very tribal kind of background, and so fitting in is all important on that genetic level. But as you evolve spiritually, it becomes much more about becoming yourself as an individual. And as you become yourself, you might not find as many people with whom you relate on a deeper level, because a lot of people are just trying to fit in. They're just trying to get by, and part of getting by means playing a certain kind of role. And as you break out and find yourself, that might not be as appealing. So you either have the choice of settling for connections that don't really satiate you, or surrendering to your aloneness. And eventually, people that are on the path to congruence, they don't want to settle anymore. It becomes too unsatiating and just too unappealing. So they go into themselves. And this is a very common process for people who are on the path to awareness, that they spend some time alone, that they connect with their own energy and get comfortable with just being in their own skin. So as you go through that process, your ego might get into comparison and say, well, you're not like other people, and so there must be something wrong with you. As opposed to the truth of the situation is probably there's something wrong with most people, which is they're just playing a role and they're trying to fit in and they're not authentically expressing themselves or being themselves, and they maintain their relationships through their withholding as opposed to through vulnerability and self-expression. So the process of people breaking out of large group kind of mentality and moving towards a more intimate sense of community and connection often means a period of aloneness. So if you compare yourself, then you will feel miserable because your mind is telling yourself, they are right and I am wrong. They are good and I am bad. They are popular and I am unpopular. They are happy and I am miserable. And this is all just illusion, because as in terms of this whole misery thing, that's the only thing making ourselves miserable if we're alone is our mind. Nobody's doing it to us. It's just our self-defeating ego thoughts that do that. So with fitting in on a tribal level and not surrendering to your aloneness, you're basically choosing to be a victim of your own thoughts and not surrender. I've mentioned Carl Jung's concept before on this channel, his idea that it's hard to break away from the herd mystique, is what he calls it. H-E-R-D, mystique. And this has really resonated for me because it has to do with that whole tribal kind of inheritance that we have on a genetic level that says that is the way to safety. Fit in with the herd mentality, go along with, the mainstream of thinking and just try to be liked. But that is never the way to finding yourself. People have to break out of their socialization to become at peace and to become healthy and healed. So the spiritual teacher Osho says, I can paraphrase his words, basically, you can either feel bad about not fitting in, or you can celebrate the fact that you're courageous enough to walk your own path and to do your own thing. I remember the first time that I spent a holiday by myself was probably 98. And I was distant from my family, both geographically and emotionally. And all my friends in town had gone back to their respective families, so I was totally alone. And I had some anxiety about that, like, oh my gosh, is this going to be horrible and depressing and whatever? And I was able to enter a period of just surrender on that day and just listen to music that I liked. And at the time I was reading Conversations with God, and I was actually working on their website, and I just decided to do some graphic design, making some little spiritual imagery for their website, and just kind of just be present with my own energy. And I was able to get out of that state of comparison and feeling like there was something that I was missing out on. And in that surrender, I just enjoyed the energy of what was. And I think anyone can do that. You can treat it as a day in which you have the spaciousness to experience yourself and do what you like. And if you are alone, or even if you're around other people but you feel lonely because you're not in a romantic relationship or whatever the case may be, you get to be yourself regardless of what day it is and regardless of your external circumstances. And that's wonderful, that sense of freedom to be yourself and do what you enjoy. Just recognize if you feel yourself start to slip into comparison, that a lot of that is just an illusion. People that have a large tribe aren't necessarily any happier. They're just perhaps more amicable and playing roles and kind of settling on certain kind of family agreements about what gets talked about and what doesn't get talked about and that kind of thing. And be very conscious of the impact of commercials. I've been using a DVR or TiVo type thing to get through commercials, and I still get the essence of them as I speed through them, that beer would make me attractive to models and cars would give me a sense of freedom and power. But it's still better to skip through them if you can afford to get some kind of device. Commercials are really, programming you to believe that there is an association between their product and happiness, and they'll use imagery of the romantic response to a diamond ring or other kinds of silliness, the the warmly lit family dinner where everyone's passing food and being so kind and gentle. It's like, I want that. Well, yeah, you want that on a deep kind of genetic tribal level, but the spirit is here to recognize completeness. And so instead of just trying to commiserate with your mind about how horrible things are, take this as an opportunity to go deeper into your practice of being yourself and growing and healing and just allowing what is to be, and know that you're not alone. On a spirit level, everybody's interconnected. We're all separated by our various thoughts and egos and stages of development and all this kind of thing like that, but everybody is just trying to get back to that sense of unification they had in the spirit level. And to get there, we sometimes can't just jump into a large interconnected kind of community. We have to figure out who we are and undo all of the craziness that comes along from being socialized and trying to fit in and going through all those years of school and fitting in at work and all those different roles that we got used to playing and somehow mistook for ourselves. Let go of all that and just surrender, and you can connect with a deep sense of peace, even if you are by yourself and it's a holiday and you think there might be something better out there, but then you realize, this is enough. Everything is just fine if you let it be.